our fellow listeners and viewers. The last time we met, we discussed study session 6 in our entrepreneurship studies 2, titled Creativity and the Entrepreneur. There we discussed the creative process. We discussed also work environment and creativity and other impediments and obstacles to creativity. Today we are moving ahead straight to study session 7, and this study session 7 is titled Management and the Entrepreneur. Management and the Entrepreneur. What is management and what is entrepreneurship? How are they related? Is there any relationship between a manager and an entrepreneur? Is the concept of business formation has any relevance with entrepreneurship? Or can we say that a business manager is an entrepreneur? All these questions, among others, are what we are going to find lasting solution for under this study session 7 titled Management and the Entrepreneur. And we'll start with trying to make a distinction, a clear-cut one, between business formation and entrepreneurship. Can we say that anybody who has formed a business is an entrepreneur, or does every manager of a business qualified to be regarded as an entrepreneur? If not, what then are the distinctions between a business manager and an entrepreneur? First, the core principles of entrepreneurship are innovation, creativity, and discovery. That is, to be an entrepreneur, you must have the ability to innovate. You must be very, very creative, and you must have the ability to discover new things. You must be able to add value to an existing thing, and you must be able to create something new in terms of invention, which of course had not been done before. All these are done with a view to satisfying the yearnings of the consumer and to maximize societal welfare. So the core principles about entrepreneurship is the ability to innovate, to create, to discover, and to invent new things and new ways of doing things. While business formation is a process of assembling resources together, or putting resources together, and the resources we already know as inputs in the production process, which are 1, land, 2, labor, and 3, capital, for the purpose of producing goods and services to satisfy consumers' wants, needs, as well as desires. So to form a business actually entails putting resources together in terms of varying inputs to give rise to varying outputs. Inputs are combined in varying proportion. Some quantum of land is mixed with some amount of labor, as well as some quantity of capital that will now give rise to a product, either in form of a commodity which is tangible or a service. And what a business manager does is to assemble all these resources together, arranges them in the productive process, and give them their adequate rewards. And as we know, the reward for land is rent, and labor takes either a wage or a salary as a reward, and the reward for capital, of course, is interest. But the person who organizes them is called the entrepreneur. Is the manager who combines all these resources together to give rise to a given output, and his own reward is either a profit or a loss. And that's why it is not all the time that the entrepreneurial pursuits would lead to making a profit. More often than not, entrepreneurs make a lot of losses while trying to do what they know how to do best. The question now is, can we say that a manager is the same as an entrepreneur? If we put it in a different perspective, we can ask the question in another form. Is business formation the same as entrepreneurship? Can we say that an entrepreneur is a manager, or can we say that a manager is qualified to be regarded as an entrepreneur? This, of course, will take us into another important concept in the study of entrepreneurship called intrapreneurship. And what is intrapreneurship? Intrapreneurship is an entrepreneur who works within an organization or an enterprise on behalf of an entrepreneur. He assumes sizable amount of risk, and he performs other entrepreneurial activities and functions on behalf of his boss in that organization. An intrapreneur is an employee of the organization who takes either a salary, a wage, a commission, or all of the above as rewards for his activities in the enterprise. But what distincts the intrapreneur from an entrepreneur is that the entrepreneur provides the venture capital, the capital to start or to put a business in motion. That startup capital is provided by the entrepreneur, not the intrapreneur. Then the intrapreneur just assumes minimal and sizable risk in the course of carrying out his activities in the organization. Then the intrapreneur also is limited to his assigned duties, but the intrapreneur is an employee of an organization who has grown up, who has acquired a lot of experience in the organization and qualifies to take major entrepreneurial functions and decisions on behalf of his boss, the main entrepreneur. So this, of course, is the basic distinction between a person called the intrapreneur and the entrepreneur. So entrepreneurship is not entrepreneurship in the sense that an intrapreneur is an employee in an organization where the entrepreneur himself is. So an intrapreneur, as we have said, is a paid employee of an organization who performs all the entrepreneurial roles and functions in that organization on behalf of his boss, who of course is the entrepreneur. So this, of course, is the major difference between the two. Another difference is found in the fact that the intrapreneur is not the owner of the business, and the provision of the venture capital, as I said earlier on, is not provided by him. So the financial risk is off his neck in that business. That financial risk is the preoccupation of the entrepreneur himself and not the intrapreneur. Having known the clear-cut distinction between the intrapreneur and the entrepreneur, we now move ahead to explaining the managerial functions as it relates to the entrepreneur. We have mentioned in the course of our presentations in earlier sessions that the entrepreneur is a manager in an organization, but not all managers are entrepreneurs. One can be a manager performing the functions of a manager in an enterprise, but not an innovator, not a creator, not an inventor. But the entrepreneur, being an inventor and innovator, once he has commercialized his innovation and invention and his creativity, he performs all the other assigned managerial duties and functions in an organization. These functions are many, and I have here about 8 of them, and we'll go after them one after the other. The first one is planning. Every manager in an organization must have the ability to plan. Failure to plan is a plan to fail. Your objectives as an enterprise, as embedded or as enshrined in the vision and mission of the enterprise, must be brought out clearly in form of well-defined goals. It is with that you now plan your alternatives with a view to achieving the stated objectives as contained in your core values, which of course must emanate from the vision and mission statements of the organization. Number 2, the entrepreneur performs the managerial function of organizing. And organizing deals with putting resources together. Both human as well as material resources are assembled for productive activities by the entrepreneur. The entrepreneur is the one that will arrange land, labor, capital, and all other resources, financial and otherwise, before production can actually take place. Next to that is directing. The entrepreneur is the director of his organization. He directs all activities. He gives out all instructions. He dishes out information to all his subordinates, and that is why he's a leader. So the ability to direct must of course be possessed by the entrepreneur. In the course of his performing his entrepreneurial activities, he directs various activities on minute basis. Every minute he has a role to play as a director. He puts people and materials aright. Number 4 is controlling, and controlling is a major managerial function which the entrepreneur performs. He controls all activities in the enterprise. The entrepreneur is the number 1 controller in the organization. The final box stops on his table. He receives all the blames and praises in that organization. Next to that is the managerial function of communicating. A good manager and a good entrepreneur must be a good communicator. The ability to communicate clearly and effectively is a function not only of the manager, it's a function of a very good entrepreneur and a very good leader. You must be able to communicate clearly, you must communicate unmissingly, you must not miss your word, you must be clear and be edible. People must understand what you are passing across as a manager and an entrepreneur. Next to that is leading. Every manager is a leader. Every entrepreneur also is a leader. They lead and others of course will follow. Entrepreneurs perform the leadership role in all facets of the organization. Number 7 talks about delegating. Delegation is a core managerial function, and that means that no person is an island. You cannot do it all as a manager and you cannot do it all as an entrepreneur. An entrepreneur who has successfully commercialized his activities, his innovative activity, his inventive activity, who has turned it into a product, either tangible or intangible, must realize the fact that it cannot be all in all. You need to have people. You must operate with the team spirit. You must bring people together, coordinate them, lead them, and now go ahead to delegate functions and responsibility to them. Each of them now give you a feedback. They will now report to you based on their assigned roles. So the principle of delegation is a core managerial function which the entrepreneur or the manager cannot play with. The last one is that of making decisions on minute basis, on daily basis, on hourly basis, morning, afternoon, and evening. The entrepreneur and the manager in an organization take decisions. They make choices among several competing alternatives, and when choices are made, a decision is taken, and these decisions go a long way in making or mar the organization. So the responsibility to take a decision is that of the manager and the entrepreneur in their various organizations. With this, we come to the end of our discussions on the topic management and the entrepreneur in study session 7. Let's just take a few minutes to have a recap of all our discussions under study session 7 titled Management and the Entrepreneur. And I want to start with our distinction on business formation and entrepreneurship. You will recall that we said that the core principles of the entrepreneur are to innovate, to create, to invent, and to discover, but that in business formation, it is just a process of putting resources together, i.e. land, labor, and capital, arrange them for effective production in the organization. And we went ahead after that to make a distinction between whether a manager is qualified to be referred to as an entrepreneur. And we have found that an entrepreneur who has commercialized his innovative and inventive experience into a product can qualify to be referred to as a manager. But not all managers in an organization can be referred to as an entrepreneur. And in that wise, it points to the fact that business formation is not the same thing as entrepreneurship. Albeit, every entrepreneur, more often than not, uses the small business workshop as his own laboratory to carry out experiments on his innovative pursuit. After that, we went ahead to discuss the distinction between intrapreneurship and entrepreneurship. And we said that the intrapreneur is an employee in an organization. He's employed and he takes major decisions on behalf of the entrepreneur. He performs several entrepreneurial functions on behalf of the boss, but that is not the owner of the business, and he only assumes minimal risk. He does not take the financial risk. He does not provide the venture capital, and these are what, of course, distinguishes him from being called an entrepreneur. And thereafter, we move ahead to discuss the functions of a manager in an enterprise, and we discuss the managerial functions of planning, organizing, directing, controlling, communicating. We talked about leading. We discussed the function of delegation and that of decision making. With this, we come to the end of our discussions on study session 7, and when next we meet, we will go ahead to discuss study session 8. Thank you for listening, and God bless.